Hey, welcome to Craft Central Designs. Today I have for you two beautiful coastal picture frames. These frames make beautiful gifts, and they are a great addition to any coastal themed decor. These particular frames I made for gifts for Mother's Day. Let me know how you like them. I inserted pictures of my adorable grandson so you could see what they look like with actual photos inside. Please consider subscribing if you're new to my channel. Okay, let's get busy making these beautiful coastal picture frames. I picked up these unfinished picture frames in the craft section at Wal Mart. They also carry these at Hobby Lobby. We're going to be using this napkin to cover one of the picture frames, and I picked my napkins up at Home Goods. I used them, that particular one, in a previous project. They're really beautiful for coastal theme projects. I'm going to cover this entire front of this picture frame with a nice generous coat of Mod Podge. I also cover the sides of the picture frame because I'm going to be wrapping that napkin around the sides of the frame so it looks nice and finished. We're going to let that completely dry. And here's some 4x6 pieces of picture frame glass. I used some frame glass that I had from old frames, but you could pick this up at Dollar Tree. Just be sure you're getting actual glass in the frame. I picked up these letters. There's 2 to a pack, 2-inch letters at Hobby Lobby. I picked up some sand dollars to use for the O in love, which is going to say love in just a second here. Okay, there we go. All right, so that sand dollar is going to serve as the O in love. I have some Gorilla super glue there. I have my Cricut heat press, some parchment paper, and this beautiful napkin. I'm going to separate the bottom ply from the top so it's ready when I get ready to apply that napkin to the frame. I'm using a coastal color blue. I'll list that in the description box, exactly which one I used. You could find colors in any brand, though, for coastal decor. I'm going to use this bristle brush because I'm going to do a whitewash over that coastal color paint. You'll see that later. Okay, now I'm going to separate my napkin here. You only want the top layer. My Mod Podge on my picture frame is all dry now. And I'm going to place that napkin on the frame, but because it has that horizontal design, I want to be sure that I have it nice and straight on that frame. I'm going to put a piece of parchment paper over, and my heat press is ready. The setting is on high. I got my Cricut heat press on Amazon. I absolutely love it, as well as I love this method of applying something on a flat surface with Mod Podge. I use my fingers to go around the edges of that frame so I can be sure that I'm actually applying that heat to the edges as well as the rest of the picture frame. And I go completely over my frame a couple of times to be sure. Now what this does is it reactivates that Mod Podge, and that's how the adhering of that beautiful napkin occurs. And this is a great method because you get such a smooth application without ripples and bubbles. Turned out just beautiful on there. Okay, so what I like to do is cut away my excess napkin. Doesn't have to be a nice cut, just cut off that extra. It's easier to work with finishing off those edges when you don't have all that napkin in the way. Now I decided that it was the best idea to do the long sides of my picture frame first. So now I am going to finish those edges. So I fold my napkin over and I place my parchment paper over the top. And I'm just going to take my Cricut heat press and go over the edges. And remember that you should have applied Mod Podge, as I said before, to the edges, so you can have a nice finished edge on this picture frame. So I just go over the edges, completely adhere my napkin to the sides of that picture frame. And it worked like a charm. Beautiful. And now we're going to do the other side, the same thing. Again, I started with my longest side of the picture frame first, and you'll see why in a minute. And just like I did the other side, I'm just going to run my Cricut heat press all up and down the side of my picture frame. And that's adhered beautifully. And I had a little contemplation here on how I was going to finish these edges. And I thought at first I was going to try and just fold it like when you fold the edges of a gift. But I wasn't too happy with the way that was going. So I made the decision to go ahead and finish the long sides of my picture frame with the nail file. I use an emery board or a nail file. You can use a sanding block or a piece of sandpaper, but I would be careful about using something too abrasive because you are working with a very thin napkin. So I take my nail file, and be sure that you just apply the nail file to the edges on the downward stroke. Don't saw back and forth with it. Notice how I just do that, press that nail file up against the frame on the downward motion. All right, so now I'm in a better position to deal with those edges. So I just fold that in like a gift you would do on a gift. Fold it over. And now we're going to take the Cricut heat press and do the same thing on the short ends of that picture frame. Parchment paper over. And you're going to take your heat press and do the same thing on those edges. Again, this is an amazing method of adhering, especially a napkin or even a lightweight fabric would be also an option. And that worked, again, like a charm. I'm going to take our nail file and finish off the short end of the frame edges. And so I took a little pair of scissors and I went and cut out the excess napkin in the middle of that picture frame. Now it was a little bit tricky here on the inside because there's a little bit of a groove on the inside where the glass sits in there. So I decided to finish the edges of the inside of the frame just by filing off the excess and not folding it over like I did on the edge. So therefore, I had to then consider how I was going to finish the inside. And so I decided to just take a little paintbrush. You see that wood there? And just paint it white. And that turned out just beautiful. Now, what I'm doing here is I put a little bit of Mod Podge on my fingertip, and very lightly I went over the edges of the picture frame. Now, you could cover the entire picture frame with Mod Podge, but I'm not a big fan of the sheen that it puts on a piece. Even though it's a matte finish, it still has a bit of a shiny kind of a sheen, and I prefer not to put it on this picture frame. So I just took my finger and very lightly went over all of the edges just to be sure everything was sealed and finished. I did a little paint on the inside there after that. Now I'm going to start on my other picture frame. Those backs of the picture frames I also painted. Especially because they're gifts, I want everything all completely finished. But I also do the same on my picture frames that I have, so that they're mine. So I like everything finished. Okay, so you're going to go ahead and paint this picture frame. I actually put on 2 coats. Now I'm going to do my little dry brushing technique with my Snow White Waverly chalk paint. Now I have that paper plate there so that I can dry off my brush. And I'm just going to put like a whitewash over this picture frame. I love this for coastal pieces. Now, if you get too much on your brush and you get a blob on your picture frame, it's so easy to correct that. Just take a paintbrush with your original coastal color and just go over the areas that you were a little heavy-handed with your whitewash or your white chalk paint. And this really adds a nice touch to this frame. Just keep applying it until you're satisfied with the look. And there you go. Very pretty. Okay, now we're going to apply the letters here. The sand dollar is, I don't want it flat on the picture frame because the other letters, the wood letters, they're a little bit raised. So I decided to put a little bead underneath the sand dollar. Now I just used a hot glue gun to apply my letters. And I also used a hot glue gun to apply the bead and the sand dollar. But I'm going to tell you that later on I changed my mind because I just didn't feel like it was sturdy enough. So I decided to use my Gorilla super glue. And I used that instead to put the bead down and the sand dollar. So if you want to make that change from what you see me doing here, I would suggest doing that. But I used hot glue to adhere all the other letters, and that was a good choice to adhere those letters. They'll stay on there very well with the hot glue. I also purchased some shells on Amazon because I'm going to embellish the upper left-hand corner of those frames with some different shells, sand dollars. You'll see here in a moment. A little starfish, little finishing touch on the corners. And that looks very pretty. See, that was a little unstable. And that's why I ended up changing my mind about the glue. And so here's those shells. And notice that I painted the backs of those inserts for the picture frames. Now my shells up in the corner, I did just use hot glue for those. I just arranged the shells to my liking. Here's some pretty shells that I got on Amazon. And I ordered some sand dollars. And yes, I do live by the beach, but I like really perfect shells. Those are from Dollar Tree. They're little ones that I use there. They have some really cute little shells there. But I really like perfect shells when I do a project like this. So, oh, and here we have those finished picture frames. And they are just beautiful. There's my little grandson standing by the ocean water. It's so pretty. This is a beautiful photo. All right, so if you like what you see on my channel, please consider subscribing. And until next time, you all take care.